Hello and welcome to the STCfit Learning Podcast. I'll be your host today. My name's Ben Scott. I'll be joined by Jason Galea. Thanks for joining us on our way to create 1 million positive outcomes for personal training clients by 2030. The podcast is brought to you by @STCfit Learning, a page created to upskill and educate PTs and gym nerds. Also brought to you by @STCfit, and that's a place for all your online and in-person personal training needs. If you enjoyed today's episodes, please give us a share and tag on the Instawebs. You can tag @STCfit, @STCfit Learning, @BenScottSC, and @JasonGalea PC. Hope you enjoy the show.
Let's do it. It's been a long time.
Welcome, guys. STCfit Learning Podcast.
What's up?
We're back. I've got a guest episode for the first time in
It's been a long time.
A really long time.
Too long.
One of the OGs of the podcast as well. We've got Will Crozier on. If you listen to last fortnight's episode, we did mention that Will was on the way. We're going to be covering lots of stuff today, specifically about moving into powerlifting coaching, and the differences really between like training for general strength in the gym, but also then progressing from there into being able to take clients to powerlifting meets. But before all that, I was just saying I haven't spoken to Will for ages, so we're going to catch up first and just see what's going on. So for those that don't know yourself, Will, I know you've been on our podcast a couple of times, but just give us a rundown of yourself, maybe as a business owner with Nexus and an athlete. Just let everyone know who you are.
Yeah, well, on the athlete side, I feel like I feel like that side's a little bit to the side for now. Like, it's been so long without comps. Like,
Yeah.
thankfully the comps are coming back. I don't know if you've noticed, but like everybody's a little bit more, I don't know, the vibes change on social media. Like, people are starting to like, oh yeah, things are open, competitions are coming back. Like, people are starting to push in the gym again. So like, I'm starting to feel that a little bit too. So hopefully that side comes back very soon. But hopefully starting next year, I get to compete again. Hopefully it's FitFest Pro if that is a thing in April, but if not, we'll see what happens. But yeah, on that side of things, I am still currently at this very moment the under 110 all-time Australian record holder with a 385 squat, 220 bench, and 387 deadlifts. Jeez, almost forgot that. How crazy!
It's been so long.
I haven't actually done a squat, a bench, or a deadlift in the gym for at least a month, probably more like 5-6 weeks at the moment, just because on the business side of things, we've gone from an exclusively online company for the last almost 8 years to just starting our own gym, which has taken up a hell of a lot of time and added a shit ton of stress to my plate, which meant that training has taken a little step back on the priority list. And so, yeah, like like I said, the training sessions are more gone to a style where I can get in a lot of work in a short amount of time, which definitely isn't barbell back squatting, bench pressing, and deadlifting, because they take me a good amount of time just to warm up and get to the working sets alone. So it's just a lot of machine work, supersetting stuff, drop setting stuff, intensity techniques to kind of get in a high amount of stimulus in a short amount of time at the moment, which is actually been quite fun. It's a bit different. It's just less thought and more just push,
Just
go
work,
hard,
get it done.
Yeah, actually started experimenting with cluster sets. I've used them with clients before, but I don't think I've actually ever done them myself. My goodness, my hamstrings today. Good Lord.
Yeah, what did you do them on? What exercise?
Just RDLs. So we did
Filthy.
5 minutes of 5 reps, 15-second break, repeat. And it was only 70 kilos, but yeah, I'm glad I took it easy the first week. Next week it will be interesting with some extra load.
I love that you set a time to it, so that's just even more.
Yeah,
that's just brutal.
Yeah. I don't know where I found it. It was like a hypertrophy specific approach. So obviously, like, you've got a time limit and you just go. And if you basically, when we did the shoulder press, because Tam did it with me as well, like, you fatigue so much quicker in the shoulder press. So by the end of it, we were doing singles and doubles with 15-second break. So yeah, it was gnarly.
I think Chad does something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Either that or he sets like an amount of reps that you have to do.
Yeah,
you just got to do them.
Yeah,
one or the other.
I just did the Google
bodybuilding.com.
Yeah, cluster set protocols. Well, that one makes sense. So let's
T
do that.
Nation, man. That's where we're at.
Yeah, Tam tried to say it was CrossFit, and I was like, nah, it's on T Nation. It's bro work. So I'm really curious, man. Like, we spoke years ago now about like the gym situation, and you were like, I'll never fucking do it. I've seen other people do it. Fuck that. It's too much time.
Yeah.
What was the I guess moment that you went, nah, fuck it, let's do this?
No, I'm still very glad that we didn't at that time. Very, very glad. Because going through what we've gone through now, I've like gone, shit, like we really didn't have our shit together enough back then that it would have, well, I'm not saying it would have failed, but we would have just had a lot harder time with it. Like the current gym, the model that we're going to be using is more of like everybody in there is coached type approach, which is fantastic because we already have all the systems. The coaching system is really efficient and built out really well from the online business. So it's easy just to drag them across and go, and it's just, it's much easier. Whereas if we had to build them all from scratch, along with doing all the gym stuff, it just would have been an absolute nightmare. We would have been working, around the clock to get something together. And it just, I don't know, I just felt like it probably would have been rushed and just not done to the standard that I would hope. That, and as anybody who has done any business knows, like things just end up costing way more than you expect.
Yep.
There's always just like, here's some extra money for that guy, and so you can have some money too. And it's just, you feel like you're just giving out money for no reason to everybody, which is scary when we're at the point we are, which is we're not even open yet, not even close. So there's no money coming back from it. But that's just how it is. But we understand it a lot more now. So back then it would have been a lot scarier. Right now it's just like, we understand it. It's fine. We planned for this. It's all good. So that's partially the reason, is that we're just like more established. We have the systems to cope with it. We just know what we're doing a little bit better with business, that we can plan better. All the finances are in place to make it happen, but also just because we thought it was just the next step to give people more value. Like we had gone down, obviously, the coaching route, done really well in that space. And then COVID kind of slowed things down a little bit on that front. People either not being able to train or not compete slowed that down for us. And then it's like, okay, cool, we got some extra time now. Let's push into the education side of things, because that's where we were headed anyway. So just speed that up a bit. We launched our Nexus mentorship, coach mentorship, along with the nutrition mentorship, and they've gone really well. We're 2/3 of the way through that now. And so sold them out, went really well. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what's next?
Yeah.
Where can we develop into next? And I was just sort of fine. Like I don't think anybody doesn't, like, we didn't want to not have a gym full stop. We just weren't ready back then. So now it's like, okay, now it makes sense. Now we can actually give people the value and the service that we would want to in a gym. And it just, it works.
Yeah, I think it's a similar sort of thought process to we had. Hey, like we sat down and had the conversation of like, I don't want to buy a 40-hour-a-week job. Like, I don't want to be the guy with the vacuum on my back, walking around all day doing that stuff. Like, it's not the outcome that we were looking for from having a facility. So seeing, I guess, the evolution of you guys, like you got 3 or 4 coaches on board now, like across nutrition and training as well, right?
Yeah, so we're a team of 5 in the online space, and we're hiring a full-time employee for the gym to be a kind of an, sales admin, just walking around the gym floor helping people out type guy. Yeah. And also a one-on-one PT coach who's exclusively part of our team in the gym as well. Yeah. So we're able to step into the space, hopefully not having to be there all the time. Like you said, hopefully it's not going to take away from the online business. Whereas if we did it 5 years ago, it would have been like one of the other guys choose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with the education stuff rolling out, it makes even more sense, because like the biggest problem we have is like we want to do stuff. And it's like, where do we hold that? Like, where do we host that? We have to, the logistics of putting together an event is so much higher, because it's like we need somewhere to go and do it. Yeah. The ability for you guys now to have that. I know you're pretty keen on making your YouTube content and all of that out of your garage. You were with had the media team and all of that. So having access to a facility, I think once you get to the level you're at, it's really valuable.
Yeah, we've got a new videographer. He's come in. He's already done his first video in the new space, like an intro to the space. imagination tour type thing. And then, going to be pumping the YouTube once we're actually getting stuff in there. It's just took a back seat because we had the last guy kind of leave on us. And then also with, like I said, the commitments of actually doing the opening the gym and stuff like that just got pushed to the side, but still definitely part of my plan.
Yeah, it's really exciting. There's a few names that I think are really valuable to the industry that are kind of pushing in this direction at the moment. It's kind of becoming a trend of high level coaching groups starting to like create their own facilities and education platforms and all of that, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, the industry is definitely changing in that way. Like I don't know what it is exactly. You guys would know more than me, but like the whole like just privatized facilities seem to be just they have been for a long time, but just even more so recently, just pushing forward and just pushing into the space a lot more. And you say to the average person, what's a gym? Like if you mention the word gym, they're picturing the big commercial facilities, whereas now there's tons of people doing, even if it's like F45 or something like that, or BFT or something like that. Like at least like they're just headed in that direction. There's a lot more people venturing out of the big box gyms into the private spaces. So
even the expansion
hopefully it keeps developing.
The expansion of powerlifting in the last 5 years as well. It's like powerlifting, quote unquote, gyms. It's a club. It's not like going to, as much as they call it Good Life Health clubs, it's not a club. Like no one else in there, it's like connected to the other people, whereas like powerlifting clubs and stuff, it's like everyone in there knows each other's name and works together, and that's what F45 plugged into and why they were successful. And now like BodyFit's copying that model, and like now it's like, well, like, how do we do that for the person who doesn't want generic stuff? It's like, what's the next step to that? Which is, like you said, everyone that goes into that gym has a coach or at least is overseen in some way, shape or form. And it's high quality, high standard services provided for people that want that next level.
No, that's exactly what we're going for. That's everyone walks in to be coached. We have to be thankful to F45 and that a little bit, because and then now people are happy to pay $60, $70 a week for training. So it's like, cool, now we can charge that and people won't freak out as much, which is great. That's exactly what we're going for. We're going for the family feel that everybody knows each other, happy to help each other type thing. That's why when I said there's going to be a sales admin guy, it's not just his job. He's going to be walking around helping people out, making sure everybody's doing the right thing. And I feel like if we just let random people in, like just gave out gym memberships and just let random people in, and then, I don't know, we have some guy come in and he's like, oh man, I heard of this new cluster sets that he's doing or whatever, and this guy's just doing random shit on his own, just going like,
sounds like the gym I go to,
fucking doing kipping pull-ups or some shit, and then everybody else is just like, that's so much different than what we're doing. Like, is that guy doing it right? Like he's walking around telling everybody he's the fucking he's the boss, he's loving it. Like, well, should we be doing that? And then it just adds doubt to people's mind. Like, I want people to walk in there and know that the coaching and what we're giving them is going to be fantastic. This is how it's done, guys. This is our way. If you don't like it, leave. And everybody's on the same page. That's what we want.
I think if you look at like the successful kind of fitness models, like what you're really trying to do now, and like similar model to what we were going to put together when our gym kind of happens, is looking at that community aspect, which is like the F45 and that, like people just want to belong and feel like they're part of something. And it's like, if you take the studio PT kind of model with your method, and then it's like you bring those things together. It's like you've got your coaching method, you got your message, everything's consistent. Every single person in that facility is on the same page. And then it's like they bringing in that like element of community. It's like you're just ticking all the boxes. And for like high quality personal training, or like high quality training and coaching in general, it's like that's the next step.
Yeah. We got some systems in place. We hopefully got, I feel like we've got the right people to make that feel happen in this place. I think that's probably the biggest thing I was concerned about, is just getting the right vibe from the guy on the door, the right coach to match that. Like just everybody having the same.
It's huge,
like,
man. Yeah,
just putting out the same energy.
Just having everyone on the same page, same vibes. Like, yeah, nice and consistent. Like, it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. So tell everyone, where's it going to be? When does it open? What's the go?
It's in Burleigh Heads, which is on the south end of the Gold Coast. Just 5 minutes from us. Nice and easy.
Perfect.
Looking at opening at the end of January. Not 100% confirmed. We have most of our stuff should be in there by Christmas, but as I said at the start, like just shit happens, right?
Yeah,
so we'll see. We'll wait and see. But plan date is started January, but we're actually starting to sell memberships next week. So awesome. We're starting to like launch into the initial ones. Like I said, everybody would coach, everyone would have a program. So we'll start to give people access to that programming and access to a couple of other little benefits if they do us the nice act of securing a spot and signing up early, just to make the admin a little bit easier for us. That'd be nice. So
reduce that anxiety as well.
It's scary that like we're only feel like we're only just planning this shit, and then it's like, okay, we'll start selling it. Like it's all happening at once. Crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, full steam ahead. Awesome. So obviously, we've got, while you're doing all that, also working on the module for the 1% program that we've got coming out February next year. So really, really keen for this. I think like having yourself and the other people that we have involved takes this thing to like another level. Being able to put like, and we sat on this for ages, like who are we going to get to do what? And there was this thing of like, who are the world's biggest names? And like, do we go down that road? And it's like, oh, let's just fill it with quote unquote celebrities that are like going to drive the most amount of traffic? Or do we prioritize who we like, who shares our values, and who's really fucking good? Yeah. And it's like, if we can put that together, then the course will speak for itself. It might be slower to grow. Like it's not going to open up with as many subscriptions as if we had the name necessarily, like a fucking Lane Norton or something like that. But it'll build over time because we know that the quality is going to be really, really high, and we're really happy to put our stamp on it, which is exciting. Yeah,
and the passion's there. Like every person we've spoken to is like that passionate. Like we say it all the time. It's like they do this stuff for free. Like you're one of those people, man. Like just always trying to help people, always bringing out good content, always down to have good conversations with people, get really good results and stuff. So it's like these are the kind of people that we wanted as part of this program, because we know that this is going to be just the highest standard that it possibly could be.
Yeah. I'm super keen. It's super keen. Like to go. That was the point of our mentorship side of things, is like I really want to like talk to coaches and show them through my methods and show them all the mistakes that I made. So to be able to do that and talk to people that have been through your content, that have been through your other programs and got to there, that are educated and looking to really specialize and just to finish off on it. You've made my job easy, so I'm loving it. I'm really keen. I'm ready to jump in, which easier than people probably think, because I know we're going to talk about it, but like talking about what makes it different between like a strength coach or like like you go into a Good Life, like you said, and then there's like a strength coach in there, but it's just like a strong guy who calls himself a strength coach, and then a guy prepping for powerlifting. Very separate things, and what the differences are between them. There's not as much as what people probably think. And the thing that you've done that would have done really well up until that point in this program is that is going to be, people are going to have the fundamentals down. They're going to have the principles really down by that point. And then it's just making it really specific to that situation and just really clarifying exactly what we need to know there. And I think as soon as we go through it a little bit, people will be like, oh, I get it. Like we already learned all that shit. Like the big principles that we've been going through for the last weeks and months, it's the same shit here, but just like that little bit more specific. Yeah. So, I'm keen to see it, because I've seen it a few times when people have that light bulb moment, and I have I don't know. I just think people are really going to get it. I'm excited.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like, and what this course is kind of designed for, the 1% program, is those coaches that kind of have their business working. They pretty much got a full book, but they want to get better. And one of the next steps in your career is becoming a specialist at something, and being able to take on clients in a specialty role, whether it's physique, athletic performance, or today we're talking about powerlifting. It's like training Susan to get stronger and be able to hit like a decent 5-rep squat. The principles are exactly the same. But I think it's interesting. The principles flow on really, really simply and easily, and they're easily applied when you know them. But I think something that coaches, as well as the general population, kind of trip up on is like going to the gym. And people say like powerlifting training is the sport, and it does my head in because it's not. It's like you work and train up to being really good at doing that thing on the day. Like you don't go in and do singles all day. That's not what the sport or the training of powerlifting is. And I think people have this perception, and it's just like, because it's a squat, bench, and a deadlift, I'm powerlifting. It's like, no. Being specific into powerlifting is like, how can I be the best at doing 1 rep of those things on a particular day?
Yep.
And I think that's where the biggest separation, that if you're like, hey, I'm pretty good at like getting people stronger, particularly like anyone can get anyone strong for the first 6 months, even 12 months. But I'm actually able to maybe get people stronger beyond that as well. Now, how do I take someone safely from the gym lifter to, let's sign you up to a novice powerlifting competition or your first meet, or take you through your first season or whatever? Like what's the big gaps there?
Yeah.
I think that's where the big hole is in terms of, because I know when I went into powerlifting, it was just like, I'm going to prep myself and figure it out, bring in some consultants and see how all of this works, and then go and do it. Whereas our goal is like, well, let's give our experiences, Will's experience over how long you've been competing for, almost a decade now, of all the mistakes that you've made as a lifter and as a coach, and just bypass all that shit and actually know what you're doing from day one.
Yeah, there's a lot of mistakes I've made, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can, avoid some of those common pitfalls for people. But there are a few different avenues we can go down with this as to like what the misconceptions, I guess, as to what like a person thinks a powerlifting prep is versus what like you said. I can think of one that just pops up on top of my head, is like people think they get to the magical numbers like 12 weeks out, and from there, that's where you start prep. And then that's where you start to do powerlifting, like you start to do heavy work from there on and whatever. Whereas like it's you're always on a sliding scale of periodization. Like straight after one comp, if you're a powerlifter that's competing regularly, cool. Now we're kind of getting ready for the next comp from here on. And it's just a matter of like, okay, how much time do we have? How much time where are we going to kind of slide from variability to specificity and slide up and down that scale? How much time do we have to work on other qualities, to bring other things up? You're always working on those things. So like something like that is just a really common misconception I see with the average person, where they're, I know, I guess it's the same in any sport, right? In bodybuilding, it's like, oh, I'm dieting now. Yeah. I'm getting ready for bodybuilding now. And it's like, yeah, well, the best, see fucking like the Mr. Olympia just, in his off season, just chilling out, like maybe 30, 40 years ago, but not anymore. Yeah. Like he's not rocking up at 30% body fat being like, I'm ready for prep, guys. Yeah. Like it's not the same. So people need to be on, also, the fact that people, it's the problem. One of the problems with powerlifting is that it's a very short-term sport. Like, as in, like we see people come in and exit the sport really quickly. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but getting people to understand what longevity in the sport looks like, why it should look like that, and not rushing through things, not pushing specificity, not doing singles year round, not doing that sort of stuff. And just understanding that it is a long-term game and that the best have been doing it for 20, 30 years type thing. So, I mean, there's just so many things that are kind of half rights, like the bro myths out there with powerlifting as well. There's not just bro science in bodybuilding. It's in powerlifting as well.
Yeah. So if we maybe take a look from that coach who's like, I want to either you already are and it's just like you don't feel confident in your approach right now, or you're kind of considering like, I've got some clients, I'm interested in squat, bench and deadlift, they want to get stronger, so I want to go in this powerlifting road. I think one of the biggest things that maybe they face or obstacles they face is like, you touched on it there, they don't actually understand what a prep looks like. Like what you said there, it's like, it's not 12 weeks out, let's start doing singles and I'm doing a powerlifting prep. So I know like you would have a process that when someone comes to you and it's like, okay, well, what do I need to look at for this individual to then take them to be able to do a competition to their best ability, whether they're already a competitor or they're new to the sport? What are the things that you're looking at for that person to then set up, and how long typically, like in an ideal world, if you got to choose, how long would you want with someone and how would that kind of look?
I mean, like that's a hard one. I mean, like as long as possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, same with in bodybuilding, anything. I have had people come to me 5 weeks out and go like, "Oh, hey man, like I'm pretty strong, but can you just, peak me for it?" And it's like, well, I can, but just understand that like doing 5 weeks of singles, it'll get you kind of good at getting singles, which is the sport. That's great, but it's rough. Like it's a bad approach because like that's where the risk of injury, where the risk of all this stuff kind of goes through the roof, because we're just going from kind of this baseline to spiking up in intensity and spiking up in volume or whatever it is. We're making big changes at once. The predictability, which is really what prep is about. It's about predictability because, like you said, we need to be able to perform on one day. That's out the window. Now we're just kind of fucking guessing. Yeah, we don't have a training history. We don't have data to go from. We're just taking the scientific principles of what we know about training and what we know kind of works, and we're just kind of slapping together and going like, well, this should work, and just hoping for the best. So like the more time we have, the more training data we have. Like that's what individualization is. It's like, okay, I'm going to take this blend of scientific principles that we know kind of works, frequency, volume, intensity, like the general principles behind these things, along with how you move, along with your training history, and then blend them into a program that makes sense. Try it out, run a block of that, and then go like, okay, cool. What worked? What didn't work? Are we seeing progression? Did you enjoy it? Like ask me all these questions at the end of that, tinkering, tweaking, making adjustments, hopefully heading in the direction of more optimal, and then moving into the next block, and then the next block, and the next block, and hopefully you end up with something that is right for the person, that makes them really good. Yeah. All whilst taking into consideration the timeline of prep. So we've got the timeline of prep. We know that we have this date we need to be good at, which means that we need to have, if you want to get good at singles, you have to practice singles. So we're also kind of filtering in singles, doubles, triples, just heavy work, like not necessarily really hard work, like close to failure, but singles, doubles, triples that are a high enough weight to give you practice at using heavy weights on top of that process of individualization over that time. So it's kind of what a prep looks like. Yeah. And why it's a little bit hard to give an answer, but I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think if, in just my own experience, if I was going to throw a number at it, working with more of that like person who's interested in powerlifting but maybe hasn't competed before, it's like the first question is like, can you squat, bench, deadlift, and can I see them? Assuming that things are okay, and they're not like...
I don't get that problem these days that much, thanks.
I quarter squat 200 kilos, like, okay. But if I was going to throw a number at it, it's like around that 6 month mark. For all the reasons that you said, I like the idea of having maybe 14 weeks, which is like 3 or 4 solid blocks where we can focus on how you move, how you respond to stuff. Like having coached with you for a few years, it's sort of like, we're going to try this and let's see how you respond. How you feel in week 2 of the program, how you feel in week 4 of the program. That worked, that didn't work. You responded to that, you didn't respond to that. Make an adjustment moving into the next block. You don't want to be chasing how someone responds to shit like 8 weeks out. Yeah. It's too late. Like how do they handle lots of stress? So obviously early on in a prep, that stress primarily is going to come from like volume more so than intensity, but it gives you a good idea of like, Jason's digestion dropped this week, and then his weights went to shit or his motivation to train went to shit. It's like, okay, I can see, all right, digestion's a thing for him that I need to keep an eye on, that's warning me we're getting close. Like just little bits and pieces and mood and like communication with clients, you can pick up on how they're feeling overall. So just having that time to get to know the lifter is super important, I think, in powerlifting, like that relationship element.
Even just as a coach, like always trying to like obtain as much information as you can, and have that like proactive, reactive approach. Like you said before, Will, it's about like using the scientific principles of training and the individualization of the client, but then there has to be that like review process and that ability to kind of change things on the fly if they need to happen. You know, and that comes from having those areas covered, and that's, in my opinion, part of what makes that specialist. It's like what moves someone from like general training to specialty is they have all this information to decipher these decisions and go, we need to change this for you right now. So next week, this is what this looks like. You know, which is going to hypothetically move you in a better direction.
Yeah, and people are different. They suck at different things. I always give the example of like bodybuilders. I've had bodybuilders come to me that have, you know, a ridiculous amount of muscle mass, which funnily enough helps a lot with strength. But they just don't really know how to squat, bench, and deadlift super well. So like they'll hit like their 10 RM on bench press with 150 kilos or something, but then their 1 RM will only be like 180. And it's like, well, you know, if I look up any chart on the internet about RMs and like you're completely wrong. you shouldn't be like that. Your 1 RM should be like 220, man. What the fuck? Why aren't you doing that? It's just because they don't, when it gets to those really high levels, they freak out, whether it be like a mental thing or they just don't have the physical control over their body to get that weight, to move that weight. So for that sort of person, I'll be giving them a lot more skill work, a lot more practice with heavy work, and a lot less of the volumey stuff. Whereas with somebody who's really, really good at the execution at the top end, maybe they need a little bit more mass on their body, maybe we flip that script a little bit. So there's always everyone's going to be a little bit different.
Even how you fit into your class as well, right? Like it's describing a bodybuilder there sounds like a beginner. It's like you just suck at doing the thing, do the thing more.
Well, you've still got a big headway of everyone
of course,
else.
But it's like someone brand new coming in, it's like we need to teach you how to do the thing that you're going to do, and then we can add more muscle and stuff to that over time. Whereas, you've got someone who's got a good squat, bench, and deadlift. It's like, okay, the best way for you to get better right now is probably get bigger and add more muscle mass, and that's going to be the thing that we're going to focus on. So when you look at that kind of 20 weeks, what happens in that first 14 is going to be determined by the person you're working with. Maybe more so than like the last 8 to 12, because like the last 8 to 12 for everyone is like you're going to do some pretty heavy work of the lifts that you need to do on competition day.
You need practice.
Whereas
eventually we're going to have to, right? Like eventually we're going to have to do some singles. Like
it might be a good idea.
Usually people want to do that stuff a lot earlier than later, but it's rare I run into the person that doesn't want to do singles. But
so you're even looking at like we obviously coach a lot of like of the smaller girls, sort of in that anywhere from 47 kilo to 60 kilo class. We've got tons of them, and it's like most of them don't want to be enormous. They want to stay inside their weight class, and it's like, okay, so we've got to either recomp you, like lose some body fat so you can build some muscle and stay in your weight class, or we just need to focus on the neural side of like making you better at it than actually putting on a ton of muscle. So considering all of those variables is then putting them in play is like, well, how much time do I have? We know that last, whether it's 8 to 12 weeks, is going to be putting big loads on barbells and doing the 3 movements with some other stuff, but we can target those other variables based on the individual beforehand.
Yeah, and this is what I meant by you guys would have done a lot of the work for me by the time they get to specialization. As I'm sure you're covering needs analysis and stuff like that. It's just a little bit deeper. It's the same thing, but just a little bit more zoomed in.
So the next problem I think coaches had, again, we touched on it earlier, was like they don't understand what the specificity for being good at a 1RM requires. So like in your opinion, when it's training for, say, general strength and wants to look good at the beach but likes strength training, the difference between that person and someone training to be really good at a 1RM, what do you see as the main differences there in your approach?
It's just a lot more, I don't know, that first person, I always find that those sort of people that, what did you say, like look good at the beach and kind of want to be strong or enjoy strength training, like those sort of people, like it's hard because I want to get a more clear goal. Like I'll straight away to that person, I'll be like, what do you really want here, man? Like, because if we're just kind of taking this bodybuilding program and this powerlifting program and just throwing them together, like they're the sort of people who end up just spinning their wheels or just hurting themselves or just doing crazy shit. So, but I would most likely find with those people that they really want the hypertrophy side of things. They really want the look good sides, and then they just enjoy the strength side. So we're just going to give them just enough strength training, like a minimal effective dose type approach with the squatting, the benching, the deadlift stuff to appease that enjoying strength training side of things. Go like, hey, here's enough, have fun, like lift some heavy stuff, and then give them a more common program, bodybuilding program that makes a lot of sense, that ticks all the boxes on the other side of that. And you can literally, that's how I write the programs. I kind of join together. I look at the skill work, the skill aspect of it. I look at and then I look at the general strength, like the GPP side of things, and then I jam them together. And then for the powerlifter who is an actual powerlifter, who's going to prep, who's going to compete, it's just way more specific. It's just like, okay, cool. And now we're going to do way more squat, bench, and deadlift. The bulk of your program, 80% of your program is going to be squatting, benching, and deadlifting volume, probably higher frequency. And then we're going to kind of have minimum effective dose of that other stuff, like just enough hypertrophy work to not go backward or to keep you moving well or whatever that is. Like just enough of that stuff. So it's just flipping that script a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me as well, that's the point. It's like, when you decide that 1RM is the goal, 1RM is the goal. So your bicep curl programming is determined by the goal of the 1RM. So it's like every single part of your program, the exercise selection, the volume allocation, the intensity, the frequency, all of that is determined by how to make you the best at one rep on a date, whenever that's going to be. Whereas maybe like your person in the gym is just like, there's way more other variables that we consider. Like you want to have nice cap delts on the beach or big calves or whatever.
You want to have fun.
Yeah. It's like, what are all the pieces? Okay. Well, I've only got this much recovery left for the squat, bench, and deadlift. So that's how much we'll do, versus I need this much squat, bench, and deadlift. And with whatever's left, I'm going to add these other things that are going to make you better at that.
Yeah. The amount of times I've had the strong guy in a gym come up to me and be like, man, Craig, like, fuck, like, I wish I could be as strong as you. And then I look at him repping out like pretty friggin' good numbers on bench press or something. And I'm like, well, you definitely could be, man. Like, if you actually just treated squat, bench, and deadlifts as your main focus, like I do, rather than just kind of jamming it together with all your rest of your work, you probably would be pretty freaking strong. But they don't get it. Like, they don't get it that if you really put the focus on those things and make those things the number one priority, it changes a lot. You get a lot better at those things. Like it makes sense in any other aspect. If you want to get good at riding a bike, you ride a bike a lot. But if for some reason when it comes to that, they don't see it straight away.
What do you think the difference? So putting ourselves in the shoes of that person, like they got an exceptional amount of muscle mass, and they obviously attest the muscle mass as being the major indicator of strength, right? So it's like, what are the things that are going to take that person from being able to rep out like tens with an exceptional load to a 1RM? There's other elements to this, right? So they just don't know they exist.
Yeah, just a lot of practice with heavy stuff. Like it's as simple as that. Yeah. Like obviously it's not just as simple, like that's like me just saying like just eat less or whatever. Like it's not quite as simple as that. It has to be done in a systemic way that makes sense and that isn't going to hurt people. Yeah. But fundamentally it is that simple. So we're gonna just start applying like methods like adding in top sets, adding in singles, doubles, triples year round. Like I said before, doesn't necessarily mean that they're super hard. Like I might take a set of three or four reps from failure, which is a pretty easy set, but it's still like 75, maybe 80% of my max, you know, like it's still heavy. So it gives me the exposure, the opportunity to practice squatting, benching, deadlifting with a heavy weight. And then you do that enough times that gives you the opportunity to improve. You just like muscle gain, like you measure, am I getting better at this thing? No, okay, I probably need to do it more frequently or with more volume. And then find your requisite for getting better at it and just keep chipping away at it. It's as simple as that. And then slowly closer to comp, we're going to go down to doubles and we're going to go down to singles and we're going to maybe push a little bit closer to failure and until you're ready for that day to do an all-out top single.
Yeah. So I guess the take-home message is like there's skill and like coordination and all these things that have to be acquired that are specific to the outcome. So, and it goes at both ends of the spectrum too. Because if you've got this new client who's never done a 1RM, it's like, is there any point in even putting that person in that situation? And then you've got this really trained individual who's hasn't done a 1RM ever, but can smash out a huge amount of load for tens. It's like both of those people require a certain amount of steps, a process to get them both under that bar or, you know, whatever it is that they're doing to be able to kind of lift it safely, efficiently with the, you know, the number one outcome performing as best as they can.
Yep. And along the way, we're going to find issues. We're going to find problems. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're going to see breakdowns in technique, no matter how advanced you are, other than maybe a select few individuals in the world. We're going to see breakdown in the lifts. And it's our job as coaches to go like, hey, you know, write that down. That's good information for future. And then maybe in the next prep, we chuck in a slight variation of the lift. You know, maybe it's a safety bar, maybe it's a stiff leg deadlift, maybe it's a close grip bench press or a long pause bench press or something like a close-ish variation of it that provides that stimulus to hopefully correct that issue. And then again, it's just a review process. It's just to watch that, see what happens. Has that changed? Has that provided a stimulus to make the person better at it? Does this person feel more practiced? Do they feel more confident? Like lots of different questions to ask. Yeah. But it's just a constant review. It's a constant, just did this work? Did that work? Lots of questions.
I think it's interesting to assess people over a training age. And I look back, like I did powerlifting for 6 years. I will be back. I keep saying I will be back.
We done sprints the other day, so you're a long way off it.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. Is like I was doing physique work for probably 5 or 6 years. We had a year of boxing in between. Then we did powerlifting. It was just like how much you change as how your body works during that time frame is just, it's insane. Yeah. It's like you and I, like you came and did a leg session with us one day and it was just like, you were absolutely minced. But if I went and did your leg session, it was like, I'd probably be throwing up in a bucket.
Yeah.
And I think like once you get beyond that novice trainer where just touching your barbells makes you better at everything, like it builds muscle, it makes you stronger and everything sort of happens. Once you get beyond that, there's like, what do I actually need to, how do I need to work as a human to make this work? I'll never forget, it was probably, I think I was peaking for my first sanctioned meet. And I had a class for the AIPT group. And we had to demonstrate like push-up variations. So it was like on your knees, on your toes. And then we did plyo push-ups. Oh. Like I did 3. And like I was pretty impressed with how far off the ground I got, to be honest. But I was fucking wrecked. Yeah. Like puffing. Yeah. And it just was like I had so much, my nervous system was just like everything happens at maximal force right fucking now.
Yep.
Whereas like 3 years before that, it was like I was trained to do like 10, 15, 20, doing effort. Fucking BPAC programs, 30 reps.
Yeah.
It was like, just, okay, I can do this, no dramas. And the mechanisms that you kind of learn and the way you train is to like deal with what's in front of you. And then that changes so much over time. So taking that bodybuilder and just be like, all right, you're built to do this thing. It's going to take us some time, but like Jason lifts the same hand and foot when he walks. But like you've almost got to, depending on how far you want to go, like you're creating deliberate dysfunction to make you good at the thing. And then like Will said earlier, like sometimes it's just like you're just trying to limit enough dysfunction that you can still do the thing to the best of your ability and kind of be a human. Like,
Yeah, that's why dysfunction is a kind of a silly word.
Yeah.
It's not even really dysfunctional. It's just that you've got really fucking good at one thing.
Yeah,
When you get
it's the
really,
trade-off,
really good
right?
at one thing,
Yeah.
you kind of get crappy at other things. And that's just the human body. Like, that's just like when you said you were stuffed after the push-ups and stuff like that. That if you weren't, I'd be surprised at, when did you say, like a month out from comp?
Yeah.
Because like a month out from comp, like we're trying to like really tax like that sympathetic drive. We're trying to like make you rigid. We're trying to like really just make you like really fucking good at powerlifting for this particular moment.
Yeah.
And that comes at the sacrifice of other things. And it's kind of like powerlifting takes it to that next level because we literally have to be good at like one thing. Whereas if you're a footy player, you're juggling different attributes.
Yeah.
So powerlifting is that next level of specificity where like we create the absolute Mount Everest of strength, of short burst strength. And then we have the trenches of everything else goes in the absolute bottom of the ocean, for that short period of time.
Yeah. So be prepared to buy a stick with a brush on it so you can wash your back because you can no longer rotate. Be prepared to be puffed going on walks.
Walking upstairs.
And things like that. Yeah.
It's only for a short period though.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
Bodybuilder sucks at the end, but then you're like, oh yeah, cool. Like that was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important as, again, this is for coaches who want to go into powerlifting, like coaching powerlifting clients, to understand and how to communicate these trade-offs that are coming in.
Yeah.
It's like I've had people that like get really strong and they're like, oh, I'm really shit at this. It's like, of course you are. It's like, that's the opposite of this. It's like me trying to fucking run the first time. I was like, no, you're not deadlifting, bro. Like, relax. Stop bracing. Yeah. You can't muscle a run.
So powerlifters are bad at that, man. Powerlifters are real bad at that. They want to brace for everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, of course you're not good at this thing anymore. That's because you've trained not to be.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know, Will, you're a big proponent too of like taking that into consideration of after comp, getting you to actually kind of move like a person.
Just periodization.
Well. Yeah. I think
straight after a comp, we want to give you back what you didn't have to prepare you to be better the next time. Yep. It's like if I was a bodybuilder and I got really fucking lean for stage and then I just stayed lean the whole year. And then the next year I just got, I just dieted that little bit extra. I wouldn't get very far. Like I wouldn't do that much better. So that's the bodybuilding equivalent of what you do in powerlifting. If you just stay rigid and stay like super specific all the time, is like you won't get that much better because you're just driving the same thing and you're not giving your body the opportunity to get better in other areas. You're not going to get more hypertrophy. You're not going to get probably health is going to be impacted to some degree, depending on how you do it. And you're just going to miss out on the opportunity to get different movements in and to learn different things to get better overall as a human and as an athlete, so it's funny because most people don't understand that they think that going full balls to the wall and powerlifting year round is the way to get good at powerlifting, and it is in the short term, but in the long term sense it isn't. We want to get as big as possible. We want to still live a life like we want to still be able to move to some degree. You know what I mean? There's the cost to that specificity, so we need to offset it.
Do you think that's why the lifespan of a powerlifter is so short? It's just because they're too specific, too much, too long.
Do you think that's why? And do you think it's changing now? Because we look at powerlifting, some people like yourself look at powerlifting training with this like more broader global kind of view.
Yeah, it's part of the problem. The other side is mental. Like, just people are very focused on competition and what they're going to hit at the competition rather than the process. And social media really doesn't help that as well. Like, we're constantly seeing by these strong ass motherfuckers from overseas just hitting PBs, even your competitors locally PBs. They're not posting up their fails. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's PB and what the fuck? And so when your training's a little bit shitty and all you're seeing is PBs from everybody else, it pushes you and then makes people do silly things and push a little bit hard when they should need to, which is why everybody, in my opinion, should have a coach to go like, slap. You're thinking emotionally. Stop thinking emotionally. Here's some logic, And it's like, oh, duh, yeah, no shit. Like the amount of times in preps where I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm talking to my coach and I'm like, fuck, man, do you reckon we should change this? And he's like, no, stop being an idiot. And I'm like, yeah, I'm being an idiot. Yeah. Like, it happens to me. It happens to me. I've been doing it for ages, you know? Like, we should all have somebody to give us that little bit of a slap every now and then.
Yeah. I think it's really important as the coach to be prepared for that too, like the emotional roller coaster that's going to come. Because there's all these stepping stones. And you mentioned earlier, like people think, oh, it's just like 8 to 12 weeks out, I'm starting my prep. It's like, no, your prep started last comp. Or like the prep started when you said you're going to want to do powerlifting. Yeah. It's like we've talked about it before, clients that like hire a coach for prep and then disappear. Yeah. And then they come back again. You're like, man, we've just wasted all this time to make you better. It's going to be really challenging. So being across that as a coach and sort of when someone does come to you and says, hey, I've got a guy at the moment who qualified for nationals in APL, but obviously didn't run, who was just sort of like, hey, I want to compete. There's a meet on in 3 months. Can we do it? And I was like, how long have you been weight training for? He's like, oh, on and off for 4 years. I'm like, what's on and off mean? Yeah. It's like, he was a good field athlete. It's like, this isn't the same thing, man. Like we can do that and risk a lot. And really you're not, I don't know if you agree with this, Will, but I don't think you make progress as a lifter during your peak. During your peak, you're tuning what you already have to be effective. There's a little bit in terms of experience and skill and all that kind of stuff. There's benefits there. But in terms of making you a better athlete, that's done outside of that peak. Yeah. So every time you do that is, the way I looked at it was like, my main thing is I knew I had to be at least 90, if not 100 kilos to be competitive. So for that 6-week block plus recovery, I'm not building any muscle. So it's like, well, why would I compete every 4 months if I can go longer than that and progress faster over a 12-month period? That's the way I weighed it up. And I think being able to communicate that to people and just be like, this is a 1, 2, 3, 5 year thing to get the best out of, like, to get to even anywhere near what's going to be your best. Don't rush into that competition. Yeah. Be prepared. We're going to have to do multiple preps. We're going to have to do multiple growth phases, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's the same reason why doing just competing constantly is not really helpful. Sure, you get good at competing. You're going to get some sort of progress, sure, because like you're just going to be more confident at singles and you're constantly kind of there. But it's the same as what I said before. Like you're just constantly specific. You're not really building muscle. You're not really building those other qualities. The way we do it with nutrition and that is like during a prep, like maintenance and things like that, because we actually don't want to add the stress to the body of growing tissue or it, you know, even worse,
losing it
in a deficit. So we're mainly sitting in maintenance just to keep things consistent and keep things predictable. So like, yeah, there's not much growth happening for sure. Yeah. We're just peaking that skill. We're just really fine tuning the neural aspect.
Yeah, for sure. So the third kind of problem that we outlined that coaches would have coming into this would be not knowing how to peak. I think if we look at most PTs in the gym, even if you train like mainly body comp focused clients, most people inherently know getting stronger is important. So improving technique and having some kind of strength focused outcome within people's training is cool. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to do strength work, which for most people is like, we're just doing 6 to 8 instead of like 10 to 12 or 15. But when it comes to actually putting together that last like 4 to 6 week peak block, I think that's where a lot of people would just be like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And we were laughing earlier. It's like, just jump on T Nation and find out like, subjectively it takes 14 days to recover from a deadlift and it takes 10 for a squat and it takes 7 for a bench press. And like these unwritten bro rules that we have.
The theory.
Yeah. So like, where do you start in terms of like putting a peak together? And where would a coach go, or what would a coach be thinking throughout that phase?
So there's a few different aspects. I'm trying to remember them here. I was thinking them as you said it, so I'm trying to remember them here. First of all, by the time you get to the peak, you should you should have made things easy for yourself. Like you should have got there and already almost been there, and then the peak should just be the little icing on the cake type thing, the little cherry on top like type. People expect, first of all, expect way too much out of the peak. Like, oh yeah, I'm just going to be kind of strong, and then I'm going to peak, and I'm going to put like 10% on my lifts, and it's going to be fucking amazing and, you know, incredible. In reality, it's not nearly that exciting. We're just, the whole fundamentals behind peaking is we're going to reduce fatigue so that you hopefully can express what you can, like what you're capable of on the day, and it's just really predictable. We're not walking in with fatigue. We're not walking in like gassed from our sessions before, and we know what you're going to be able to do. That's kind of best case scenario. Maybe you're going to get a little bump from it, but like for the most part, your peak's just making sure things go right. It's kind of landing the plane, yeah. So I think that's a big misconception with it. Like you guys cover fatigue management, load management in your courses building up to that point, so it'll really help to explain that. Yeah, but peaking as well is not just about, again, I just said that it is all about the fatigue, but it isn't just about that. It's a big component of it, but it's also just the mental aspect of it as well. It's the getting the person really confident, like building momentum within training, like, oh, you know, like this week went well, next week went well, next week went well. Then you get to the comp day and you're like, fuck, I'm feeling like the last 12 weeks went really well. Like, why the fuck should I fail? Like, there's no reason. Like, you're just confident by that point. You've got everything moving in the right direction, and you're just mentally primed for that day as well. So there's a mental and physical aspect to it. So peaking, yeah, it just really shouldn't be as complex, because if you've done what we said before, you've had tried and tested methods where you've gone through a heap of blocks, we have results, you should be able to go like, this program, we've tried it multiple times over and over and have proven to get really good results for you. So we're going to do something that's still very fucking similar to this. We're not going to go like, oh, hey, we're in peak now, so we're going to go on T Nation and just change everything. We're just going to take this program that works really well, just make sure that you're hitting some good heavy singles, that you're getting practice exposure to what you're going to be doing on the day. Hopefully a lot of weights around the doubles, around the openers and the second attempts that you're going to be taking on the day. So you're really confident moving those weights. And like I said, just building that, instilling that confidence, instilling that momentum in the lifters as well. So unfortunately, probably a less exciting answer than what people hope. People tend to think, come to me and hope that the peak's just going to change their life, but unfortunately not the case.
It's an important message to learn though, as a coach as well, especially if you're inexperienced, like taking someone into a peak like that who's got an event. It's like if you cook them at that time, or if that client wants to do the meet during the peak and you don't have the experience to say no and load manage that, it's like that's where injuries happen, that's where burnout happens, that's where some nasty stuff can really go wrong.
Yeah, this is a good chance to nitpick at like programs, like what not to do as well, I think. And that the typical approach that the very beginner powerlifter takes to it is of like a linear fashion. And, you know, hey, at a long way up from cons, we're going to do 10s, and then a little bit closer, we're going to do 8s, and then we're going to do 6s, then we're going to do 4s, then we're going to do 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, 1s, and kind of just like a linear taper into comp, which really, if you think about it, you're only really doing heavy work for like the last, I don't know, like 4 or 5 weeks, maybe something like that. Like this, and if you add up the amount of singles, doubles, and triples that you do over that time, like it's not many. Yeah. So like if you want to get good at powerlifting, you don't just do powerlifting for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. Like probably should be doing heavy work like for a much longer period than that, for at least 3 months, if not. Like my guys are doing kind of heavy-ish work pretty much year round. So, I mean, just something that jumped out to me there. Like your peaking will be a lot easier if you come into it with some preparedness for heavy work.
Yep. Yeah, I think having been through the process with yourself of quite a few times, like you go in and I see lots of powerlifters, their peak is like their competition. It's like every lift that they do is like the competition, rather than like how do I get the best now for that day?
Yeah.
Like what's the best thing I can do today to make me really good on competition day, rather than what's the best I can do today, period. So you have people going and miss lifts 3-4 weeks out for no reason. You have people like chasing like loads that maybe aren't quite there yet, and tech breaks down, and they're reinforcing bad patterns, and then they're fucked because they went too hard on their deadlift, and now all of a sudden their squat that was 3 days later is fucked up as well, and then that movement pattern goes to shit, and then your bicep hurts. Now your bench press sucks. It's like, chill the fuck out. Think about what are you actually trying to do. It's like all the stuff that you just said. We're like, get confident under the bar, be really good handling those big loads, execute the skill really well, deal with the arousal of putting that new weight that you've never lifted before in your hands or on your back. Like, experience all of this stuff on the way through. And then like I've had one average prep, one bad prep, and the rest have been really, really good. And I'll put my hand up and say the bad prep was my own fault. It was shit outside of the gym, not Will's fault. But like going in after a good prep that's gone well like that, it's like, I'm fucking not missing a lift today. Like, it's not happening. And I think the first 3 meets I went 9 from 9, all 3 meets, because the prep was like, what do I need to do to be the best in 4 weeks? Not how do I get the biggest lift for Instagram today?
Yeah.
Long term over the short term for sure. So should be always thinking ahead. But if we turn that back on the coaches a little bit, there should be a little bit of education behind that. It's not just entirely on the lifter.
Yeah,
definitely. They need to understand the process too. Like what's the purpose of this this block?
Like, hey man, hold back because in 3 weeks we're going to be doing some heavy shit.
Yeah,
you know?
and I've seen coaches do it. It's like, oh, like your previous PB moved really well. Let's put 2.5 kilos on today. And it's like, that was your top set. If it looked good, do more next week. But like, just chill. You did. Today's not the competition.
I'm sure we had the conversation a few times, Ben. I can't remember exactly, but I'm always saying, like, don't get greedy. Like, just take the win. Just take the win, you know? Like,
that's a good mindset.
Just, I've said it in our mentorship a lot about, like, setting volume and setting intensity, and that, like, we always, as coaches, want to get the best out of our athletes. And it can be tempting to go like, hey, this person's getting progress, but what if they could have more progress? And then, so you're like, it's like, grass is green type thing. So you're like, oh, just chuck a little bit more volume in, a little bit of intensity in. Then all of a sudden they're like getting fatigued or like breaking down. And then you're like, fuck, damn it.
I feel like we've all been in that spot. Yeah. I feel like everyone's been in that spot. You just get carried away because you want to get better outcomes for people. Yeah. It's just like, it's a really hard thing.
You're really trying to help.
Yeah.
But it's just like, if my general rule of thumb is somebody's getting progress, like just take it. Just be happy with that, you know?
Yeah. Don't try and fix it. It's not broken.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Cool.
So in terms of like deloads and all that kind of stuff, do you have a standard protocol? Because that thing of like 14 days, 10 days, 7 days, like that's spat out everywhere, that's how long it takes to recover from each lift. How do you approach that peaking thing? Is it the same for everyone, or is it specific to the athlete? And what information, where do you get the information to say like how this specific person needs to peak?
You get it from previous training. You get it for exactly what we've been saying. It's like, hey, you responded really well to this. You've made progress from this. You feel really good in your lifts and confident in your lifts, in this layout, in this structure, with this volume, with this intensity. You seem to recover well between your squat exposures, your bench exposures, your deadlift exposures. With this, you perform really well. So we're going to keep on marching forward with this. And like I said, hopefully by the time you get to that back end of prep, you have that shit for the most part figured out. Yep. You know, like in the end, at the taper at the end, sure, you might just take a little bit of gas off, you know, just to play on the safe side of recovery. But, you know, remove volume from things that just aren't going to have a direct carryover, like back work or arm work or something like that. Yep. But for the most part, again, you just don't want to be changing shit. You just don't want to be like change shit big time, because even the things that you might think are insignificant are still adding to the total training dose for the person and still might be contributing to the result that they're getting. Yeah. So like the less that you can change during it that you know what works, and the more predictable it is, like that's exactly what you want. And then during the final week, the very final week before it, cool. Okay, now we can take a week pretty much off with just making sure that we keep enough some squat, bench, and deadlift in there, so that you're still familiar with the lift, so you don't lose like the skill, so you still feel confident on the day. But other than that, I don't think we need to go through this extreme taper that most people take, because by that point you should have fatigue balanced. You shouldn't be hitting like, oh crap, this person's just like in a massive hole of fatigue right now. Let's deload them hard. Like, and I think also the whole like super compensation thing is probably being disproven or maybe not disproven, but like shown to be just not overplayed. As big of a deal as in the science as what we maybe once thought. So I don't think you should be really trying to aim for that, because in my experience, most of the time it just leads to more problems than it solves. Like you might get lucky every now and then and really nail it and it goes fucking awesome, but most of the time it's just like you're throwing a risk in for no reason. So like I would rather just stick to what I know works.
Risk is too high. Like it takes out the predictability, like you just said.
Yeah, exactly.
For most lifters, your state of mind is more important than you're going to get more percentage gain out of your state of mind than you are from something like a super compensation. Like for most lifters up to that intermediate level, like
for sure,
how you feel walking into lift is probably going to be variation of 10 to 15% versus the 1 to 2% that you might get from a super compensation response. I think I'd much rather come in a little bit of undershot during the peak and really confident and moving really well than have overshot, lost confidence, and feel beat up and shit. That's the previous lift is going to have a much better day. I think I'll just touch on like the stuff that we would consider inside the peak, like what we were saying with you figuring all of this stuff out earlier, or what is that stuff? It's things like, does this person respond well to top sets with back offs? Do they respond well to like doing straight sets out of heavy weight? Like how much percentage do they need
to this much volume, to this structure through the week?
How much do they need to back off for their back off sets on each lift, and understanding all of how they respond to those variables? And we've spoke about it on the podcast before, like I found in my experience, like stronger people tend to like top sets and then back offs, but that's not a rule that works for every single person. Some people can just repeat effort. So it's what structure of training. The last block I did, a couple of girls, they were deadlifting twice a week. It's like, you can't do that. It's like, I fucking did, and they PB'd their deadlift. So like understanding what they do and don't respond to, where fatigue comes in, and even how they move, like how efficient they are with this particular lift might mean how much volume you can drive for them. So you've got to get to know them and how that works coming into the peak.
Yeah, technique is load management for sure. Like you're controlling where that load goes. So you're going to control how much fatigue or beat up on the system there is for sure. So yeah, absolutely. It's all part of it. That's why I said before, it's all about like the total training dose. Like sure, you might remove some sets of like something you feel is insignificant, like some hamstring curls or some RDLs or some back work or whatever, but you might not think it has an impact, but just to the totality of the whole training dose, it might be the thing that's helping that person move better or just enjoy training. And that's the one thing that they like putting effort into or whatever. I don't know. There's lots of different factors, but if it's not having a detriment, I don't need to change it. Like I won't change it.
We're up over an hour, so we'll try and wrap it up a little bit. But I just want to, for everyone that's kind of listened, who is in that position where it's like maybe want to move into training powerlifters, or they are and they want to get better at it. Hopefully the conversation today is giving you at least some places to think, like what to go look at, what to go figure out, questions to ask yourself, like what are you learning about your clients 26 weeks out? Are you just doing shit 8 weeks out that you downloaded the typical peak off T Nation and just followed it? Like, or more than likely it's probably Chad stuff. That's where I went to find out what to do first. And then have a think about like, and Jace, you can speak to this as well, photo shoots, powerlifting, like novice comps, even just like testing stuff in the gym, we've had multiple people go through the Standout PT program. We do it with STCfit. Just how valuable it is, and rewarding it as a coach for the outcome. 2, you'll get better results and better retention from your clients because they actually have, like Will said, trying to get that. I just want to look good, but I'm kind of interested in strength. Like, it only works for so long, and then they get bored. It's like having a clear goal is going to be better for your client outcome, and it's going to be better for your business because they're more bought in.
Yeah.
So they're going to get better outcomes. So it makes your whole experience as a coach better. And I know a lot of coaches sit back and are like, oh, I'm not XYZ, so I can't do powerlifting preps with. It's like, you can learn. Like, just like anything else, you can learn.
Try.
And it's not as complicated maybe as you think, like Will said. Like, the principles are the same. Really what we've outlined today is the principles are exactly the same. Get to know what works for your athlete and peak them.
Yeah.
And you probably be okay.
Yeah, the best coaches are just apply the big principles really, really well. They know specificity. They know load management, fatigue management. They know overload and the intricacies of that. Like, it's... and it is, everything's just an application of that to some degree over time, right? So if you're really, really good at that, and everybody kind of thinks they know that stuff, but then when you really zoom in, they might not. They might just know like the definition of it, but not like understand it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's good that they're going to have a lot of foundational knowledge coming into this specialization phase. It'll really help to understand it a bit deeper.
I think the challenging question to ask yourself is, can you get results with people who have 2 years of consistent training? And it's like, if you can do that, in my opinion, you've probably got a really good grasp of everything that we talk about in terms of, like you said, the principles of how everything works, programming, foundation, like understanding how things adapt and making decisions and all of that. If you have that, then it doesn't matter where the training age of somebody is, you can figure it out. And you can make those adaptations. So if you don't have that, there's room for you to move, and then have a think about from a business standpoint. This is now tying back into, like, if you have the ability to train someone who's consistently trained for 2 years, what percentage of the population do that? Only the people that put training in the top 3 to 5 priorities in their life.
Yeah,
are going to have trained for that long seriously. So what else do they do? Well, they give a fuck. They highly value what they do, so they seek out good people, and they're willing to pay, and they stay for a really long time.
Yeah.
So have a think about what your business looks like, what your fulfillment would be like working with those people. Everyone always says, I want better clients. Like, we'll be better.
Yeah. Attract them.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, how I did it was I trained people who didn't care that much, helped them get buy-in to a goal, and got stupid results with people who had no business getting those results. Like, I had 45, 50-year-old women like back squatting their body weight for triples in the gym, and everyone's like, what the fuck is this guy? Like, how is this happening? Because I wasn't wasn't a good athlete that everyone wanted to go work with. But you can get the skill set and then start attracting the clients.
Yeah. You
just got to learn and be willing to try and willing to maybe make some mistakes.
100%.
Not in the way that like you're going to hurt a client necessarily, but it's like, oh, they didn't really progress on this program like I wanted them to.
Just reflect on it to be like, we probably won't do this again.
Yeah, exactly. So Will, any advice to anyone who is newer to powerlifting coaching, or maybe has a book of clients right now that are just general strength training that want to move into powerlifting? What would be your main takeaways for them?
It's hard. I think get educated. I don't know.
Perfect.
Hire a coach yourself. Do it yourself. Get experience. Get in their shoes. Learn. Like, even if you're not the best powerlifter in the world, like, you don't have to be the best powerlifter to get the best results, but at least kind of do it a couple of times. Put in a lot of effort and see what's hard, what's not so hard, and get in their shoes. And then also just get the formal education from courses like this one, like the specialization course.
Yeah. Slide him that 50 later.
Combine the.
That's good. All right, man. Tell everyone where they can find you. So Instagram handles, websites, all of that stuff.
Got a few now. At nexusperformance.aus or .gym. And then for myself personally, at W Croz. on Instagram, and then from there you'll go through the bios and link to the websites and all that jazz, and you'll find us.
Easy. Awesome, man. It's been a good chat.
Thanks for your time, Will.
Thank you.
Thanks, heaps, man. We'll catch up soon for the content creation side of things. Should be fun.
Yeah, I'll be down there end of year, so we'll catch up for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Mad.
Beautiful.
Waters are finally opening. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, man.